Окей, ми починаємо.
We are starting. Good afternoon. Thank you to our experts for coming to Ukraine Crisis Media Center. Thank you to our viewers because the discussion is important and timely, and it would draw attention in the information space because it is important to know what is happening in education and decentralization spheres. The opportunities provided in the budget of 2017 we have already discussed here, and representatives of Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Education told much that more possibilities, more capabilities are provided, more powers are provided on local levels, how to finance schools, because they know better what is happening in the regions. That is why today we invited Vitaliy Sitarskiy, Head of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports Department at the Executive Committee of Polonska Community, Khmelnytska oblast. In theory, you are the person who can use this money for which you have been provided powers this year. Mr. Sergey Ditlenko from the Ministry of Education, we will hear from you whether you are ready to respond to feedback, to hear feedback from the local, from sites, and also Jan Herchynskiy, expert at Swedish-Ukrainian project Decentralization Support in Ukraine, and we also have Director of Education Department, Khmelnytsk Regional State Administration, Oleg Fasolya, via Skype. We will ask him how the developments go on regional level. Let's start with Mr. Vitaliy Sitarskiy. This is a beautiful theory that communities can better understand how to fund schools, whether it is realizable and how much is it realizable on local levels. Let's start with that. Polonska community was established in December 2015, and in 2016 we got 13,700,000 hryvnias, and to schools and kindergartens we spent a large amount. That is very pleasant for us. That the first step on our path was to create a base school. We responded to the competition for the best project of base school, and we won. We were one of the 4 winners, and it helped us to get yet another 2,800,000 hryvnias. We will use them for equipment for schools, for natural sciences rooms. The other half of this amount will be spent for overhauls and energy efficient renovations, replacement of windows and insulation of a building. In other words, to create relevant conditions for pupils, for rural pupils, to get a high quality education, because our base school is located in rural area. We hope everything will work well and provide good results. I have a specifying question. Last time heard from the Deputy Minister his fears of risks which base schools may bring with them. How did you work with the community? How did you persuade people that this base school would provide them more opportunities despite of changes? Because any changes in Ukraine, they are perceived skeptically. Well, we worked with community because it is very important aspect in our case, the opposition was from teachers of those schools, which were to become just branches, but not full-fledged schools. They were to become mere components of the base schools. So the community, we had community hearings, public hearings, where representatives of educational department of regional administration, they spoke there. We demonstrated that conditions in this base school will be better and competitive environment also will be ensured. Just to tell how it will be good to study there, that better quality knowledge will be there. Parents see that the conditions will be really better. Super, thank you. And now I'm giving the floor to Mr. Sergey from Ministry of Education, how to work with teachers, because parents like better conditions of studies. But what about teachers? This is one of the important problems, because teachers would not be satisfied with competition and will try to do whatever is possible not to change his location, not to go to remote place from his home. Here, important role is given to explanatory activities when we elucidate teachers that they will have the same salaries, the same functions, the same role as it was in ordinary school. It will have it when he work in this school, when it will be transformed into a branch school. This would provide even more opportunities to a teacher, because he or she will be able to work in several branch schools at once. In base school also, subjects can be joined into methodological association. Teachers can join into methodological associations. That would provide the opportunity to train more for teachers and to get better level of qualification. What about the numbers, the figures, who provide more support and who provide less support to this approach from your experience? How many claims and how many praises? Children support this, because when they try to study in base schools, when I met higher year school children, I asked them where they like to learn. They say that they like to study in base schools, not in branch schools. Here we have not 5 pupils in one form, but 20. Young boys, they say they can play football in a real team of 11 players, because they have only 2 or 3 before, and the sports grounds and gymnasiums are available in base schools, and they can also use PCs and maps in classrooms for geography. So school children, they like this novelty more than all other stakeholders. Of course, we should address parents more, because this is more complicated thing. Sometimes parents, they prefer safety. they prefer safety to development of their children. The most difficult category is teachers, from where high school is taken, and also some auxiliary staff working at school, such as some just economic staff. There are not many jobs. When school is not a branch, there are more jobs in such schools. We in our district established 137 base schools with 600 branches. We were asked, we surveyed teachers what do they think about changes to get the feedback. In small schools, teachers were either pensioners or they lived in district center towns. They just transferred to some other schools. Those teachers who wanted to stay, they stayed. As concerns all other jobs, all other auxiliary staff, it was harder to find employment for them. And now I have a question to the Director of Department of Education at Khmelnytsk Regional State Administration to get to know how they look at these examples in the regional level and how it is replicable, how can it be replicated in other schools. First and foremost, I would like to draw your attention to that the school should provide high quality knowledge to pupils studying in this school. Unfortunately, in many schools we have low level of knowledge among graduates, among school leavers. If we compare results of urban schools to those of rural schools, of course, far better achievements are provided by urban schools, but our legislation guarantee that school children will get equal access to knowledge and equal quality education, whether they live in rural area or in the urban area. In Khmelnytsk region, we have established 4 base schools which are compliant with all those requirements set by the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine for all regions. I am sure that we have very good representative cases for other educational institutions, not only in our region but also in other regions, and where we can see how we have already improved the process. We can't talk about better quality knowledge yet. We will see the results in 2 or 4 years, and we are sure it would be significant improvement in quality of knowledge. But we already can see the response from children, their feedback from those children who have been already transferred from branch schools to base schools. After months, we saw the difference between their perceptions, how they moved to study in other large schools. Their parents were afraid that they will be perceived like rural children, but practice demonstrates that children are respected and they are elected presidents of classes, boys have opportunity to play in football teams. They didn't have teams in their villages because they studied according to individual time and individual approach. Part of teachers, they rejected to go and work in base schools because they used to work with low number of pupils in forms. I am a journalist and have journalistic education, so I would like to ask you a hard question. If I am a people's deputy and my task is to criticize everything around me, I would go to the village where the school is closed. I would go and say that you will have no school any longer. This is negative. Do you have such trend to be criticized for this reform? Thank you for this hard question. It is not hard for me. Yes, we have such examples, and these cases are common, especially district level radas, deputies. They really go with their propaganda that villages will disappear without schools. This is a myth that no school, no village. This is Soviet myth. We should dispel it because it was Soviet ideology. This was just not to allow people to move to big settlements in Soviet times. So deputies of local Radas and MPs of Verkhovna Rada, we should address them with that we of course can have schools for 300 pupils. The building is for 300 pupils, but only 19 pupils study there. The economic production system in a rural area has changed. We should talk about that educational institutions should provide high quality education to children. What we do to such provocative deputies, we try to persuade them. The other approach, we try to engage other allies. We try to get allies from parents in the process of transformation of schools into base and branch schools. Parents should be assured that a school should be institution where children will get high quality education so that they can further study in universities in Ukraine and abroad. And I am giving the floor to Jan Herchynskiy, the expert of Swedish-Ukrainian project Decentralization Support in Ukraine. Very often we hear here the position that we have already seen that in the Eastern Europe. Is this do you have such feeling that some other countries have such practices, best practices?
Well, the countries like Poland, Czech Republic, and Slovakia, and Ukraine, we had the same model and we faced the same problems. And the demographic changes that brought such problems with village schools, and the approach how to solve these problems differ among the nations. And So the challenges are mainly the same, but countries, they deal with these problems using their own approach. And these base schools, this is a different strategy. It differs. The approach is different in Poland and the Balkan states. There is different schools, the network of schools, and they didn't implement such model. It was the news for them that it can be done. So we do not have the name of such a model, and in Ukraine the situation is different. There were no affiliates, and in order to understand that this is something new, because it is important to have a good name, and also we should clearly understand the role of these base schools. And here we should consider how these affiliates will work and how the central base school will work with those children who are brought there after 4th grade. And also it is important to understand the cooperation between the base school and other schools of the system. And this should provide children with opportunity to use infrastructure and to have access to good teachers, in order that these schools operated in a correct way. So there should be a program of reforming of these schools, and this program is Ukrainian. And one more question. On what stage can this reform stop? Because there are some plans of such reforms. First stage was introduced, but further stages were not implemented. What is the critical point? What should be done in order to change something, not just start to change something? So there are two critical points here Ukraine faces, and these are really difficult challenges. This is a difficult process. First, there should be responsible entity, and only in separate locations there is such a founder of such schools. These are in some communities. There are many united communities that do not have proper capabilities. They do not have enough organizational and financial resources in order to manage this network. But this is only a start. And a big challenge for Ukraine is to continue this process and to create the system throughout Ukraine, that there should be responsible people, and parents should require, because they are those who elect deputies, and from other side, the ministry also should make requests and should regulate the issues connected with the requirements based on current legislation. And we are lacking in this area. The problem of this system of management is that it lies in the vertical area. So there is departments, there is a vertical structure, and all orders are going from the top down, and this vertical becomes less and less strong and the efficiency is also reduced. So how to replace this vertical structure with the proper system, and how to create these responsible actors at regional levels. And also there is an issue concerning principals of schools, because the principal is the responsible person who is in charge of school, and he should manage the activity of the school, the activity of the teachers. So there should be clear requirements to these people who become principals of these schools. There should be a system of management that corresponds high requirements, and this is one more challenge Ukraine faces. So I address Vitaliy and then to Sergey to tell us. So you have tens of years in educational sphere. So we would like to know your opinion about communication with the principals of the school and how their attitude changed. So I have 11 experience in the area. I do not know whether it is small experience or a big one. And locally, I see that today the principal of the school and staff, they are not ready to independently work and take decisions. We can show it on the example of choosing the manuals, the books for schools. This is not a complicated task, but in some schools there were problems with choosing books. So what should be done, how to choose? So this is one of the examples. What was changed in the attitude, in the relation? I am a proponent of democratic style of management and democratic communication with the staff. And some principals of schools become more active, and it shows that we move in the right direction. Sergey, how can we make the staff full-fledged partners? So the issue of decentralization are connected with autonomy of the institution, the autonomy of teacher. So it is impossible just to shift from vertical style to autonomy, and this process is ongoing. And 2 years ago, we created a direction that is called debureaucratization. We tried to help teacher to work on the quality of education and release him from additional load, some bureaucratic obstacles, some routine work, and in 2 years we can assess this. And it turned out, in order that there should be goodwill of oblast and regional departments and goodwill of principal of school. And if the system works, only then the teacher can get those capabilities and prospects that we planned in the ministry. The same with the principal of school. And at the same time, I would like to say that contest for the position of principals, the provisions that were implemented in some territorial communities, so they can choose the active director, the active principal, who will demand proper provisions, and it will help us to develop. And the principal of the school should fight for its staff, for his school, and this is the process that is long-lasting, because the autonomy of the institution is directly related to the responsibility. So the more the obligations, the more responsibilities they need. So Oleg, can you tell us about the process of transforming these principals of schools into real managers? So this is a good question. How to create autonomous school and how to create a modern manager. So there should be successful managers who can, by their own example, show how to do it. And we can teach only by example. And in Khmelnytska, we are trying to present best practices of the colleagues who have good results of their work, and in such a way we can teach others. And we hold seminars and training that allows principals of the school to become managers of educational processes and not just administrators. And I agree with my colleagues that today we have a problem when in social media, in real life, they say that school is too bureaucratized and they want a lot from school. They are speaking about autonomy, but the transfer of responsibilities is not a difficult process. People want to get these responsibilities, but when there is personal responsibility for separate individual decisions, many principals step aside and try to find someone who will be responsible for this. And there was a bright example. I can tell you about the situation connected with bad weather in Ukraine and in Khmelnytska oblast yesterday and tomorrow. I replied to some phone calls of different officials in the educational sector. They said that the roads are blocked and they cannot clear it, and we should stop the work of schools, and we do not provide this. These decisions should be taken locally, and they should inform us then that they stopped working because of bad weather. So people should take this responsibility for these decisions, and those steps that are made by Ukraine to establish democratic state, it will give us the opportunity to educate the managers not only in education but in other areas of economy. And tomorrow's conference concerning decentralization in education, that will be attended by the heads of institutions and departments of educational ministry and the representatives of NGOs and parents' organizations. This is one more example that by these meetings we form new manager in the system of education. Thank you very much, Oleg. Thank you, dear experts. So I have a brief question about conference mentioned by Oleg, and we are, as Media Center, present new events. So what will be this event tomorrow? What will be there, actually? Do you have information about this event? This conference will be the first chance to influence the process of decentralization in education, the meeting of those people who can discuss the architecture of this process that was created by the government and the ministry. And also there will be participants, stakeholders of different level, at the level of community, cities and towns and schools, and the goal of this conference. So it is to create an environment for discussion, to hear all different opinions. I would like to add that we invited the different representatives of oblasts, and the composition is interesting. And we recommended to include in the delegation 2 principals of base schools, 2 heads of education department and United Territorial Communities, 2 activists who are parents. So to involve all stakeholders, all those who influence on education in some region, because it happens so often when the head of the United Territorial Community, he faces many problems in many areas, and he cannot pay proper attention to the system of education and those opportunities that they have. And speaking one by one with him, he says that he understands the situation, and there was such a case when there was, they said that they should prepare the materials, and they wanted to create a base school in their region, and we invited different people to this conference in order that they helped us to create this system, and that we have different opinions and different views on this. So several words. I was really glad to become a participant of this conference, and as a representative of the community, I would like to get information about these events in other communities, how this process is carried out, and the work we've done in our community. Maybe there is rational grain in our actions, and we hope that different communities can provide their view, and we should hear to each other, listen to each other, and in this way we will be able to elaborate a roadmap where to go. So thank you very much, and we call on everyone to attend and to speak with those people and to get information. Thank you very much. Goodbye.